I made it clear I did not agree with the idea of saying the election was stolen and putting out this stuff, which I told the president was bullshit. And, I didn't want to be a part of it, and that's one of the reasons that went into me deciding to leave when I did.
Hello and welcome to What the F*** Just Happened Today, your essential guide to the daily shock and awe in national politics. I'm Joe Amditis. Let's get to it. It's Tuesday, June 14th, 2022. Welcome to day 511. Attorney General William Barr told the January 6th committee that Trump had become detached from reality while pursuing efforts to overturn the 2020 presidential election results. Quote, "Before the election, it was possible to talk sense to the president," Barr said. "After the election, he didn't seem to be listening," end quote. Barr's testimony, shown at the panel's second public hearing, portrayed Trump as refusing to believe that the results were legitimate.
He went off on a monologue saying that there was now definitive evidence involving fraud through the Dominion machines. And I was somewhat demoralized because I thought, boy, if he really believes this stuff, he has, lost contact with he's become detached from reality if he really believes this stuff. On the other hand, when I went into this and would, tell him how crazy some of these allegations were, there was never an indication of interest in what the actual facts were.
Former Trump campaign manager Bill Stepien also told the committee that Trump's world had divided into Team Crazy versus Team Normal. Despite already being advised against pursuing claims that the election was stolen, Trump pressed ahead and raised $250 million from his supporters for the so-called Official Election Defense Fund, which has never actually existed. Trump instead used the money to create the Save America PAC, sending millions of dollars to allies and former Trump officials. Meanwhile, Rudy Giuliani denied that he was drunk when he urged Trump to declare victory on election night while the votes were still being counted, accusing campaign aides Jason Miller and Bill Stepien of committing perjury. In a pair of tweets that were later deleted, Giuliani claimed that he had refused all alcohol that evening and added that he was disgusted and outraged at the outright lie perpetrated by Miller and Stepien. Miller had testified under oath that Giuliani was definitely intoxicated on election night 2020. Stepien, however, never referenced Giuliani's sobriety at the hearing, though Giuliani apparently believed that he had. The chairman of the January 6th committee says the panel will not make a criminal referral of Trump or anyone else to the Justice Department. Benny Thompson suggested that making a formal referral to the DOJ is not our job. Quote, "Our job is to look at the facts and circumstances around January 6, what caused it, and make recommendations after that," end quote. Thompson added, quote, "If the Department of Justice looks at it and sees something that needs further review, I'm sure they'll do it," end quote. Other members of the committee, however, pushed back, saying the panel has a responsibility to report criminal activity to the Justice Department and that they have, quote, "not issued a conclusion regarding potential criminal referrals," end quote. Attorney General Merrick Garland, on the other hand, said he is watching the House hearings, as are Justice Department lawyers prosecuting cases related to the attack on the Capitol. The committee also postponed its public hearing scheduled for Wednesday due to technical issues stemming from the overwhelming demand on staff to produce videos. Wednesday's hearing had been expected to focus on Trump's efforts to replace Acting Attorney General Jeffrey Rosen with DOJ lawyer Jeffrey Clark, who was a supporter of Trump's fraud claims. The next hearing is scheduled for Thursday afternoon and will focus on Trump's efforts to pressure Mike Pence to refuse to certify the results of the election. Moving on, voters have nominated at least 149 Republican candidates for state and federal offices who have either repeated Trump's lie that the 2020 election was rigged or have campaigned on election integrity platforms. Overall, 108 of those who won their nominations or advanced to runoffs have denied or directly questioned the 2020 election results, while another 41 winners have campaigned on tightening voting rules despite the lack of evidence of widespread fraud. In other news, a bipartisan group of senators reached a tentative agreement on legislation to combat gun violence. 10 senators from each party signed onto a framework that would pair modest new gun restrictions with new funding for mental health and school security. The deal would also provide incentives for states to implement and enforce red flag laws, which allow authorities to keep guns away from people who are found by a judge to represent a risk to themselves or others. Mitch McConnell, meanwhile, said he's comfortable with the framework and is inclined to support it. If passed, the proposal would be the most significant gun law to make it through Congress in decades. And finally, the S&P 500 fell further into bear market territory ahead of Wednesday's Federal Reserve decision on interest rates. Before last week's higher-than-expected inflation report, the Fed was expected to raise interest rates by 0.5 percentage point this week, and then again in July, after raising rates 0.25 point in March and 0.5 point in May. Traders, however, now expect a more than 90% chance of a 75 basis point rate hike tomorrow. Despite economic indicators warning of a possible recession ahead, Biden told the nation's largest federation of labor unions that he's, quote, never been more optimistic about America than I am today, end quote. And despite U.S. stocks plunging further into a bear market and worsening inflation, the White House press secretary added that the administration believes that Americans are well positioned to face these economic challenges. That's all for now. You can find the links and sources for all of these stories on the main website. And as always, visit whatthefjusthappenedtoday.com for the latest news and headlines. Until next time, I'm Joe Amditas.